When we were young, we read more often because we had to. It was the only way for us to get knowledge and to be enlightened. Read to your heart's delight and be enlightened. Let's just read. It's a podcast by Andy's Personal Development. Stay tuned for more reading and enlightenment. Hi, and welcome to this edition of Let's Just Read. We are just 2 days away from the end of 2024. It has been an amazing year, and we take this opportunity to thank those who have been supporting us on all the social media platforms and those who would see this later on as it is aired. Our special guest today being Anne Riley, and this episode is entitled We Can Make a Better World with Anne Riley. So let me just tell you a bit about our guest as she's the focus of attention today. She is an MBA with experience in multiple industries. She has been on a lifelong quest to understand how humans logically fit into life's panorama, studying the works of Charles Darwin, Stephen Jay Gould, and Michael Rothschild, among many others. It has set her on a course of discovery, immersing herself in the basic knowledge of physics, chemistry, biology, economics, and government, and as well as personal development. It has given her the foundation for a new way of thinking about humans. And COVID gave her the time to hammer out and structure the details of a brand new theory of human ideas. And so she became the author of a publication entitled The Human Idea. There's more that is allotted and allocated to her with regards to her work and her core competencies, but for now, we're just going to focus on her main publication or her recent publication and the stuff that she has within that would bring value to our listeners and to our audience. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest live here on Let's Just Read, Anne Riley. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here.
And we are delighted to have you, and we appreciate you. So, what do you think, Anne, is one statement that you can make that aptly and currently lets the world know who Anne Riley is and what she's all about?
I think, boy, that's a good question.
Thank
I
you.
think that I am just a human living in
Mm-hmm.
this world.
Mm-hmm.
And every human has the responsibility to set their own goals in life and to figure out what they want to achieve that's important to them. And I think
Yeah.
from a very young age, I wanted to figure out how humans fit in the world and logically how we got here and why we do the things we do. And it honestly took me 50 years. I'm not saying I know everything, but I have thought about things for a long time. And every time I learned, which is it's a constant, right? We learn all our lives if we're lucky, and every time I learned things, I would sort of put them in this bucket of, does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or that I understand that might be hopeful. It might be, Pollyanna thinking or stupid thinking or whatever. But is it logical? Does it make sense in the grand
Mm-hmm.
scheme? And I guess
Yeah.
maybe after 50 years, I had enough in the bucket to start making sense of it. And the good news is, and I wrote this book because it does make sense. It all connects. Life connects. humans connect, why we do the things we do, even then when they're good or bad, it all makes sense to me now. And I was gratified. It made me feel satisfied to at least
Hmm.
know. And
Yeah.
I wanted to share that, even if people don't really understand, or you know what I mean, they might not buy into what I'm saying. I want them to see that there's a way to connect it all, and it might be a mechanism for them to think, you know, on their own about how to do things. And part of this was developing a, a different personal mindset that makes my life happy and satisfied and good for me. So that was a added bonus that I didn't expect.
Thank you for sharing, Anne. I mean, that is 50 years. That is a legacy in itself when you think about the time.
Yeah, yeah.
From your personal learning experience with regards to life and based on your current philosophy, what do you see that or what have you experienced that are the challenges that we have faced as humans that kind of prevent us from understanding how really common and simple life is for all of us. And we really
Mm.
need to sometimes just sit back and change our
Mhm.
mindset.
You're right. Well, I think it's really, really interesting. So, one of the themes of my book is that we can look back to nature to see
Hmm.
how nature operates to get some real clues. Even though humans are slightly different or very radically different in many ways, we can get some clues as to how things at least started and how we have turned things on their head a little bit. So, if you look at animals,
Hmm.
plants. They
Hmm.
all strive. They have brains. Brains and neural systems are a coordinating system. That's the thing that makes all of your cells. You're just a body made of 35 trillion cells, right? And the brain is the mechanism to coordinate all those cells to work together. So we can think of, you know, your cells as a community and your body as a society, right? And the brain is sort of the government that keeps those cells all working together. And they have, you know, only one goal, which is that the brain, that I'm sorry, that the body survives. And as part of that, each cell has to survive because they all have to do their work. So if you look at that, all animals have evolved to survive. And it's not by intention. It's because all the animals that didn't survive are not here. And the only ones who are here are the ones that survived. It's kind of a backwards, you know, the dog is chasing its tail here.
Hmm.
But when you get to humans, humans created a very large brain. You know, we evolved with a very large brain, so large that there's not just room to survive, but there's room to think, right? And that itself was a survival mechanism. But what happened is when we learned how to think, is we learned how to choose which actions to take, which goals to have. Well, animals don't, they can't set goals and set actions. Their goals are set with their DNA and they follow their instructions, and all their brain does is enforce those rules. But we can choose which goals to take, to which goals to choose. Um, and then from those goals that we decide on, those are our values. Those are what we believe in. And then from those values, we determine our actions in the world. And if those things line up, we kind of like, okay, I'm good, right? But if they don't line up, we're very dissonant. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of the unhappiness that we see today is people whose goals don't fit them, or they haven't gone through the process of understanding that they're responsible for making their goals. And when I look at this, I can remember as a kid, right? I'm taught what to believe. I have religious beliefs. I have moral beliefs. I had 10 older brothers and sisters, so they all told me what to believe, whether I liked it or not, right? I absorbed all of these ideas. And it didn't occur to me at any point along maybe the first 20 years that I was responsible for determining my own goals. I was, because it's my life. And once I got that idea, I went on the search. And it took another 20 years to figure out what my goals actually were, because I kept, like I said, throwing things out and adding things in and reading more and, figuring it out. But the job of a human is much harder than the job of an animal, because we have to learn our goals. We have to then act on those goals. And then we have to figure out how to maintain those goals. That is something animals really don't have to do. They just do what they're programmed to do. And I mean, and there is some, I'm not saying that they don't think and that they don't have choices. I'm just saying the difference between a human and an animal is so great that animals or humans are super choosers, whereas animals are under choosers.
Yeah, so let me see if I can break this down to simplify it a bit. We have choices because of a higher volume of intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
or so it appears to be in most
Mm-hmm.
cases, that at times can be to our detriment or to
Mm-hmm.
our good. And we have
Mm-hmm.
seen that throughout life, throughout the ages.
Right.
The
Right.
animals on a lower level, consequences does not really avail the opportunity for them to make choices because they are programmed and prone to function and focus
Right.
on survival
Right.
instinctively. And
Right.
that's it. It reminds me of a saying by Charles Darwin, I believe, that he says the species that survives is not necessarily the strongest, but
Right.
the ones that are most willing to adapt to change.
Right. Right. Well,
What
and the most fit.
levels of,
Yeah.
yes, what level of changes then is it necessary for us to make better choices on so that
Mm.
the consequences or the results are better, not just for us individually, but
Right.
holistically for all
Right.
peoples?
Right, right. Well, that's entirely what my book is about.
Ah,
So
okay,
we can
great.
read this in all things. So
Yeah.
because, when you think about a child, they are
Mm-hmm.
born, we are born, what I call the human ecosystem is the idea sphere. It's the sum total
Okay.
of all the ideas that we have
Mm-hmm.
created over time since we've been able to communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and the things we've created from it, right? When I have an idea and I put into action, it has physical staying power. I can write a book. It exists. I can invent a wheel, and then that wheel exists. And that wheel has ideas in it, right? That somebody else can look at that wheel and go, ha, I can attach and, put a hole in it and attach an
Yeah.
axle to it, a stick to it, and make a cart out of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Those are ideas that are in that wheel that can be shared. So, but a baby is born with absolutely no ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way they get ideas is for other people to share ideas.
Okay.
And then as we get old enough and we figure out how to communicate with each other, we can then process our own ideas and read more and find our own way. But we are born with no ideas. So what we get from other people is our sum total of our knowledge in the world, right? And the problem is that in nature, pretty much like you said, the survival of the fittest. The fittest is not the strongest. The fittest is those who fit in the environment, right?
Yeah.
And so if your animal comes along and has enough variation in it and it doesn't fit in the environment, it's gone. But if it does fit better in the environment, it thrives. Well, humans have to live in our idea environment in order to get the resources to physically survive, right?
Okay.
So
Yes.
what happens is people have created ideas for them to get resources and win and survive, right? Especially early on in our society. But those ideas aren't necessarily good ones. That's the thing. We can
Yeah.
choose a bad idea. And if we get resources from that that idea is going to live in our society. If we have an idea that doesn't get us resources or people don't accept that idea, not going to live. And when we were early on in the world with, learning how to communicate and learning how to do it, the strong ideas won. Early religions, war, Attila the Hun was a really effective resource getter. And he killed a lot of people in the meantime. Was he a good guy or a bad
Mm.
guy? Our idea of what is good and bad was changed by humans.
Yes.
Whereas animals, they all coexisted where they could. They ate what they could. They didn't. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go wipe out all the, the tigers didn't say I'm going to wipe out all the rabbits because I can.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
didn't do that. They once they got their fill, they went off and did their own thing. And mostly when they got lots of resources, they had a new generation of children because that's how the species stayed alive. We don't have to do any, we broke all the rules by
Wow.
being able to make good or bad ideas, and each of them can be shared.
It's amazing that you, in so much detail and clearly spell out the exact reality of human existence as
Mhm.
opposed to animal existence, but all combining together because we are all part of this amazing world that we live
Right,
in.
right.
And I think about something that I heard recently, and someone said they put it this way, and I had to listen because the minute I heard it, it got my attention. They said that when the rain falls, the rain doesn't decide I'm going to fall only because I need to fall or because I want to fall. It
Mhm.
falls because it's part of a cycle of nature
Right, right,
and it just
right,
does what it needs to do. It
right,
falls.
right, right.
So my question, Anne, is how can we adopt that kind of nature like principle and realize that we just have to be?
Yes. Well, I boiled it down to one sentence.
Uh-huh.
And that one sentence takes the reality of how nature is successful,
Hmm.
but adjusts it and incorporates into the fact that humans are thinkers. We think.
Wow. Yeah.
So here's the one sentence.
Hmm.
People ought to be able to do whatever they want
Hmm.
as long as they don't harm others.
Right.
That's it. That's the
Yeah.
only rule. That's the
Yeah.
only rule. Everything else is detail.
Hmm.
But if you can live your life knowing that you are free to choose all of your actions and all of your goals and all of
Hmm.
your ways in life, but the only rule is you can't harm anybody else, then you will yourself will be safe from others and others are safe from
Yeah.
you. But you are free as a
Yes.
human to do that choosing that you love to do. But that is not as easy as it sounds because if you look around at our governments and our institutions and how we operate, we don't operate that way.
Mm.
We the
Yeah.
United States and the Constitution is as close as I've seen as setting those goals properly. But even in the United States, those actions that we take, which are our laws, don't always match up. Don't always match up. And so in order to do this, we have a bunch of work to do. But the first thing we need to do is educate all people who remember children grow up with no ideas, is to put this idea in their head. Remember, every part, it's just like we're having math and reading and science class. You need a sort of a civics class. Hey, here's how we coexist. You can't harm anybody, but you get to choose what you want. Here's all the aspects of choosing that we can show you. And here's all the aspects of how we don't harm each other. And we do this every year for 18 years. I think we'd be better off and the kids would be happier. I am a Pollyanna at heart. Here I wrote this kind of, scientific book, but I'm like, there's a way that you can teach people that if this is your golden rule, to me, this is like a basic golden rule. And Jesus just said it differently, right? He said, treat others like you like to be treated. Well, some people are
Hmm.
really bad at treating themselves well. So in other words,
Yes.
look, you get to do what you want. Just don't harm anybody else. Just don't harm.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I'm just gonna share with us. This is what Anne's book looks like: The Human Idea by Anne Riley. And I wanted to tell us, Anne, what is the inspiration behind the cover? It's an amazing cover. And
Thank
it is
you.
one that I would consider as an attention grabber. You feel drawn to find out a certain level of curiosity is itch within. I
Right.
wonder what's behind the cover.
Well, it's the first time I made a cover where I had a professional help me. And I think his job was to just keep reminding me what it was I was trying to say to people. And
Yeah.
I think this is what I was trying to say was, look, we are different, but we're made up of the stars of the universe, and the
Hmm.
universe can literally be inside us as long as we
Okay.
have this brand new way to be
Hmm.
in this world. And we have such potential to take the earth to a new level. And yet we kind of haven't done so yet, you know?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that was what I was trying to say is, look, here's our newest ecosystem is our idea sphere, our ideas all branched together, all put out there together. And we can, if we understand it, we can achieve better things and maybe not go extinct, which is my concern, is that
Okay.
humans with all of our bad ideas we are the only creatures that could self-destroy. We could go extinct. We could make ourselves extinct.
Yeah.
Other animals, unless the environment changes dramatically, they're going to hang around. They'll go extinct because something else destroyed them. We are the ones who can go extinct because we destroy ourselves.
Ah, and that's amazing. And I don't mean to sound as the prophet of doom, but history supports what you just said so boldly, so
Mhm.
proficiently. There was one individual who thought that he would wipe out all members of the Jewish nation.
Right. Right.
Unfortunately, he was only able to kill or extinguish just over 6 million. That's a
Mhm.
sad story within itself. We
Right.
have we have instances where we have made bombs that we thought were weapons of warfare, but were really weapons of self-destruction.
Right. Right.
Unfortunate instances are Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Right. Right.
Um, Chernobyl, in terms of not being able to properly manage a nuclear plant, something that could
Right.
have destroyed an entire city. So it just keeps going on and on and on. How is
Right.
it that we don't realize that we are our worst enemy? And we really need to understand the byline of your book, which says
Right.
we are supposed to be Earth's newest ecosystem. We're
Right.
not getting
Right.
it, Anne. We are not getting it.
Well, I think it is um, because of the systems we're building and the way.
Uh-huh.
If you look at nature,
Yeah.
um, creatures don't um, accumulate resources, right? I mean, if a creature comes along and gets a whole bunch of food, the first thing it will do is create a new generation, right? And if it keeps eating a lot of food, what happens? It gets fat and slow, and it gets killed off by something else because it's not competitive or it's not capable of surviving. But in our human system, we have allowed the accumulation of resources to go unchecked in many ways. And when you accumulate resources, humans do, what do they do? I think Cam Knight said it in his thing. He said they just want more. They're never
Yeah.
satisfied, right? They just
Yeah.
want more. So
Yeah.
what happens is we accumulate resources, and what do we do with the resources? We cut off other people from getting resources. We buy off governments so that they make rules to benefit us. We change, we do everything we can to keep the resources flowing our way. And guess who gets hurt? All the people at the bottom who can't
Hmm.
play in that
Yeah.
thing. Our body, even our bodies, look at our bodies. We are a classic socialist system, right? Our food is intake. We intake food from our mouth, we process it up in the stomach, and then it all gets dispersed to every cell in the body. 100% taxation. All the rest of the organs don't do any consuming, and they get fed all the time. Now, humans have choices, so we don't need to do it quite that dramatically. But if you look at governments and societies, taxation is how you keep the resources distributed. If you have a very high taxation level on things like these super billionaires or the super like successful companies, they will not be able to become oligopolists, because the tax money, the money from their net income gets pushed down to other people so that they can participate.
Right.
Now, in America, people say that and you're like, you're a socialist. I'm saying no. It is just that people need resources to survive and exist in the ideosphere, in the human ecosystem. We need to provide those resources. Young families are the ones who have children. They need resources to educate those children, to have healthcare, to
Hmm.
have food, to have a safe setting. And I'm not saying give it away. I'm saying make it more equitable so
Yeah.
that those people, when they grow up, they become members of the society that you don't have to, tax so much because they're all participating, right? So
Hmm.
it's just that we are so out of balance right now that it looks like it's impossible. But we've set the system up to be completely out of balance because we've
Yeah.
decided capitalism is the way.
Yeah.
And so we keep cutting the tax rate when we should be raising the tax rate.
Wow.
In America, between 1940 and 1980, before the huge tax cut in 1986, we had a 91% highest tax rate in America. And that paid for the interstate highway system. We had such a huge middle class. We had public schools. We had this huge success of people moving through the system and excelling. And then those winners of that system closed the door, and they've been closing it ever since.
Hmm.
And that's, to me, it's just the wrong way to approach it. If you want to look at nature and how they work, if nature looked at us, it'd say your system is just going to kill it's going to kill your society. It's not going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying to say, is that we need to use nature as this guide to adjust, and then adjust for human choice and figure out how to make better system solutions.
Wow. I applaud you for that.
Thank you. Well, it's all in the book.
Thank you for sharing, and we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Yes, 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 I know. Let's just shift gears a bit and focus on personal development.
Sure.
In your personal experience, your life, what are the things that you have alluded to that has helped you
Mhm.
as an individual to create a better foundation for your personal development?
Right.
And how much of it have you shared in the publication as well?
I, it's really interesting because my first book was about my search for happiness. And I wrote
Okay.
that in 2014. So that's like a
Yeah.
full 10 years before I published this book. But
Okay.
in there were the seeds of this book that I didn't even
Hmm.
know at the time, because I wrote about my search for happiness. And I go through all these funny stories about how silly and insecure and stupid I was as a kid. But I finally came to this point that, again, I like things short and sweet. So 5 words: identify your values, live them.
Okay.
So that was the secret sauce for me. And if you think about it, what did I say about humans? We have to learn our own goals. We have to
Hmm.
determine our own values. So I had
Yeah.
figured that part out. I hadn't connected it to the whole thing yet. But to me, if you don't understand yourself and you don't understand what's important to you, you're not living your life. If you're taking
Mm-hmm.
what other people tell you, you're living their life,
Yeah.
because, and they're doing the best they can. My parents did, I had 12, we had 12 kids, I'm the 11th. So, lots of stuff happened before I was born. I grew into a system, but, but my parents did a really good job of telling us what was right and wrong and everything, all of these things. But I still had to figure out my flavor of life. And because everybody kept telling me what to do, I grew up with a completely, like, no confidence and no idea, because I didn't think I had a right to have an idea of my own. It's a very silly thing, but I didn't think I had a right to my own ideas. That
Wow.
I grew up being like one of this huge group, and being on the youngest end, it was like, I just these people are all in charge, and I just follow along, And then, of course, I got to 18 in college. It was like, oh crap! I'm sorry. Oh no! I need to decide for myself. I don't know how to do this, and I don't know what to do. So that's when I started, but I knew I had to do it on my own. And so that then was the journey. And I started going on. It was hard because I have a very anxious personality. So I had to get, I had counseling help. I had medical help. I have a funny thyroid, I have all of these funny things. And so I had to get a combination of things to help me get to a stable point where I could say, now I can determine what my values are. And then it took me, once I determined those values, it took me years to change my habits to support that kind of lifestyle. So it's a journey everybody must go on. And what I would love is if we taught people early that this is your journey, it's part of your journey. And not just like, you want to be a fireman or an accountant or a computer scientist. You have to determine what kind of person you want to be too. Who that is, what is of value to you. And you can feel it when you do something that works for you. You can almost feel the click inside you when it settles in and it's like, yep, that's who I want to be. So I came up after experimenting for I came up with another four-letter word that I like that describes what I want to be in the world. And that word is heck. Honest, empathetic, calm, and kind. Those are my words that keep me grounded. Calm is the hardest one for me. And I have to constantly be like, whoa, stop. And, it grounds me. And I can feel when I'm not doing those things. And I have to be I have to be my own policeman to come back and say, wait, come back. You need to fix this a little bit. You need to act better.
Yeah.
But when I live this way, it doesn't matter what I do. If I live this way doing it, I seem to be happy. So, but everybody has a different combination and you have to find the one that works for you. And you're your own expert. And I did a lot of things wrong, I think, raising my children, and they will tell you, oh, my mom. But one thing I did tell them was you get to be your own expert. Learn yourself because you are your own expert and you have to decide what's right for you. And, that was one of the best messages I could give them, to be full people in the world.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful. I love that 4-letter heck. Wow.
But everybody has to have their own, I had a lot of choices. I kept putting things together, but those were the ones that were like, nope, that's who I want to be.
Yeah. Okay, great. And thank you so much. I just want to show something on the screen and I want you to tell people how they can get your publication and how they can make contact with you if they connect with your philosophy, with your ideologies, and that level of personal development that you just shared with us.
Okay. Well, the website, www.thehumanidea.com, that's probably the best way. I haven't updated it recently. I've had a lot of family emergencies going through, but that you can always leave me a comment or an email there. I am on YouTube. It's called at the Human Ideasphere. And I'm slowly going through the book kind of chapter by chapter and sort of expressing this sort of visually. But, I'm slow, so it's going to take me about 500 years. So if you don't want to wait, just send me a message, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky is a new one. And LinkedIn, you can always find me there. But the best way is probably the website. And the Human Idea is out in bookstores everywhere, but the other 3 books that I have are only on Amazon. So you can find those there and you can see those on my website.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We just have 1 minute, but there are some things that I took the liberty of looking at and you just alluded to your other book. So let me just see if I can bring up an image.
Okay.
And we can share with the people that they can see. And so tell us a bit about this in about 10 seconds.
That's my first book. That's Elucidating Spirit, and that's the one about my search for happiness. And I love that. It was my first book. I loved writing it. It's got very funny stories, but if you read it, you'll laugh, but you also be like, you're a dork, because I was kind of a dork as a kid. But it was so helpful to learn those things. And that's part of happiness, is you embrace that past. Sometimes you're really like, I'm really glad I'm not that person anymore. But the other thing is you realize how much you learn from those dorky
Mm,
moments that you experienced. And it's like, well,
okay.
that's what it is.
Yeah. And
And that's just the 10-year anniversary. I just have a same book, but I just added an extra chapter to catch up on the 10 years since, because a lot
wow.
happened during those 10 years.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
one thing that didn't go away was my level of happiness, even though I had
Okay.
many challenges during this time.
Hmm. Okay. And then this one.
And Dina, this is the Ideasphere theory, but written in a Socratic dialogue. It's a fiction book.
Hmm.
The same concepts as in the human idea, but it's done in a story with characters, and it gives it's a more comprehensive discussion about the theory. But some people really like it, and some people really like the story got in the way of the theory, and some people are like, I love the story, and the theory was okay, but I really wanted to see what happened in the story. So just another way of looking at the world. So
There you go. So there you have it, folks. Our guest, Anne Riley, and this episode was entitled "We Can Make a Better World Collectively Together," with the
yes,
assistance of Anne Riley and her positive outlook on
yeah.
life as it
And
is with
I
regards
do
to
believe that
human.
we can make a
Yes,
world. Yes, I do believe it.
definitely, definitely, we can. It takes all of us.
Yes,
Yes,
yes, indeed.
wonderful. So until next time, this is Andy of Andy's Personal Development right here on Let's Just Read with our guest Anne Riley, saying, continue to read every opportunity you have, and you can get her book, A Human Idea, um, at all the bookstores, especially
Mhm.
Amazon. And
Yep.
look at her website. Let me just put that information up again so that folks can see it, they can remember it, and they can give you that visit. And they
It'd
can
be
also
wonderful.
reach out to you for your ideologies and your core competencies that they can learn. And we can all just learn to get along together and make this world such a better place for
Yeah.
us to live
It's
in.
not as
Okay.
hard as it seems.
No,
Okay.
it's
All
easier
right.
than we think.
That's exactly it. All right. You take
Okay.
care. Thank you so much. This was
You're
lovely. I really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Bye for now. When we were young, we read more often because. Okay, so we have come to the end